You see, this is what I like to hear from moderate Democrats, pointing out the Green New Deal talks about healthcare and socialism and jobs. What does that have to do with the environment? And I was standing up, just furiously clapping. Ah! No, I'm kidding. But that's my argument. Okay, I like the environment. I like environmentalism. I like conservationism or whatever, like protecting the land and stopping development. I'm all there, man. I love the outdoors. I love the mountains. I love the streams. I like to get out into the wilderness every so often, just explore and see nature and all that stuff. And so the Green New Deal excited me until you realize it's nonsense. Until you realize the Green New Deal is not about the environment, it's about socialism. Even Saikat Chakrabarti, AOC's chief of staff, said it was about changing the economy. That's not what we're talking about, man. That's not what we need to do. Okay? Let me clarify. We don't need to change the economy. We need to evolve our culture. We need to develop new products. In fact, our economy might be the greatest asset for rapidly transforming how we produce and consume and dispose of products and chemicals and everything like that. We have a problem with stripping resources out of the earth and then turning into things and then trashing it. We produce a lot of garbage. We make a lot of plastic. We pollute. Well, the best way to solve that is cultural shifts. The Green New Deal is a governmental shift. Now, there can be a room for the government in the green in some kind of green policy. In my opinion, I lean towards that being a huge net benefit. Tax incentives and grants are a great way to do it. Obama did it, failed. It sucks, but we got to try, right? Now, here's the thing. Electric cars are on the rise, self-driving cars. There is, in the mentality of Americans, a need for environmentally conscious products. We need to realize, though, other countries contribute the overwhelming majority of carbon and greenhouse gases. And although the US does contribute a lot, we've done great. The point is, AOC defends Green New Deal after Hickenlooper calls it a distraction during Dem debate. And of course, Ocasio-Cortez is trying to manipulate our emotions and use global warming to implement socialism. I find that extremely offensive. As someone who believes we have a serious problem with climate change, that humans are impacting this, we need to sit down and say, what can we do together to make it better? And market incentives and grants sound like a really great idea that everybody can get behind. However, what does AOC say? The Green New Deal decarbonizes our economy while ensuring we leave no community behind, including job transitions for miners, labor rights, healthcare, and wages. Calling the consideration of working people and climate policy a distraction is what is truly unsustainable, unrealistic. You slimy, I hate to insult, but it is so slimy. So slimy. Leaving people behind. No, it's your political agenda. It's implementing your ideology. Other people have a right to have their voices heard in how this country is run. And you, knowing you can't win on your bad and ridiculous ideas that have bankrupted several nations and destroyed them in the past, are trying to manipulate our feelings on the environment to impose your will on the rest of us. Slimy. Do I think Ocasio-Cortez cares about the environment? I really don't. I really, really don't. You know why? Somebody who truly cared about the environment and believed we have 12 months to get our act together before we face permanent ramifications would be saying right now the things I've said. Hey guys, we have a serious problem. I know you don't want to give in to the Green New Deal. What would you be willing to do, and what can I do in exchange? How can we come together and find a solution to both of our problems? Or, I've got a problem. What can I do to incentivize you to come on board with me? Because guess what? Not everyone knows what you know. Not everyone thinks what you think. And your opinions are just that, your opinions. None of us has the answer. But you want to be the authority. What she's doing is coercive authoritarianism, in my opinion, okay? There are multiple ways for a dictatorship, for tyranny to run. And one of the most terrifying ways, in my opinion, is manipulation and coercion through media and through emotion. And boy, is she pulling out all the stops. A real rational conversation may not always move forward because I'll admit, on the political compass, I am in the left libertarian quadrant. I am a social liberal, and I'll admit, true social liberalism, possibly one of the hardest political quadrants to occupy. Because let's be real. When you're center right, when you're classical liberal, You can use market incentives to get what you want, meaning if you have money, you can then use the market to get what you need, and your companies can act in a way. It's much easier. However, the fear I have of more laissez-faire systems, or more, I guess, closer to laissez-faire, is that humans prioritize things that make no sense and just, release dopamine in our brains. We do need to make sure we are not just, constantly eating chocolate cake. You gotta eat broccoli, man. Chocolate cake, I know it tastes better, but that's what your parents are supposed to instill in you. Responsibility. So for me, I believe in a mixed economy. That's why I'm a little center left. I think the free market is extremely efficient and mostly does the right thing, but we need some checks and balances. I'm sure there are a lot of classical liberals who agree. It's just to what degree. Now I'll say this. The authoritarian spectrum, whew, boy, is that easy mode. You got the authoritarian right, and on the compass, this is more in reference to like free market systems with the government controlling what you really can or can't do, and hardcore traditionalism. How easy is it, regardless of where you are, left, right, authoritarian, to just point a gun at somebody and say, do it or you die? Yeah, authoritarianism is relatively easy for a certain amount of time before everything falls apart, because guess what? Lo and behold, you don't have all the answers. You're not the smartest person in the world, and when you think you are, you will fail, as every dictator has. Now, of course, there are certain benefits, right? We've seen warlords conquer nations and move swiftly, because in terms of war, dictatorship and authoritarianism, it really works. For one person to say, here's a strategy to defeat this place, to defeat this nation, that's easy, okay? But an economy is extremely complicated. How much food do you need? How much water do you need? How many shirts do you need? How many computers do you need? That is more easily determined by a distributed system known as free market capitalism. The right of the individual to own what they produce and to determine for themselves what they should produce or do. Now, as I mentioned earlier, unfettered capitalism results in weird problems, okay? If you've seen The Matrix, and I mean this seriously, in that movie they depicted the Matrix as a nightmare. And there was the one character who desperately wanted to be in the Matrix. But I will tell you this. On a free path of human choice, we will put ourselves into the Matrix. Why? Who wouldn't want to live in a fantasy world where they control everything? Where everything's perfect, where they're not suffering, where they have the best food in the world? Well, most people would. People love playing video games. They love escaping from reality. They love doing drugs. Without some kind of, check, some kind of authority saying maybe that's too far, we go too far. Now, here's the problem. With socialism and communism, you end up going full authoritarian, a full authoritarian system, because you can't really have a socialist system without authoritarianism, okay? Now, because of this, people often believe socialism is inherently authoritarian. That's not true. Here's what I want you to realize, okay? Libertarian socialism is a real thing. It is a real thing. Now, you may be saying that's ridiculous, it's impossible. No, it is. A bunch of friends on a farm. Libertarian socialism. It's libertarian because you can leave whenever you want. You can grow whatever you want. But it's socialist in that people don't have money to trade what they're doing. When you have 10 hippies living on a farm, and one of them goes, I grew a bunch of tomatoes, man. Do you guys want to have it for dinner? Yeah. And they all eat together. There was no exchange. It's just, I did this for you. Then there's the chore wheel, where they're like, hey, it's your turn to do the dishes, man. It's like, oh, okay, right on. The chore wheel. It's a cooperative market. There's an exchange of labor based on just mutual aid. It works really well with 10 hippies on a farm. It doesn't work with tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people in a major nation who don't agree on their ideology, who don't see the world the same because they live in different regions, who don't even have the same, red blood cell count because some are in the mountains and some are in the valleys. The point is, when you try to implement socialism at a grand scale, an individual invariably tries to control the economy on their own, and they don't know what everyone needs. Thus, you bring about authoritarianism. There is no democratic socialism. There will never be, at least in my opinion, because the ability to implement this is so difficult for one simple reason. Everyone would have to believe the exact same thing. So, let me put it this way. You can absolutely have a democratic socialist country if it's being dominated by a cult-like, fundamentalist religion, which is probably why we see the tying together of socialist policy with intersectionality, a non-theistic religion. If everyone believes in the same moral good, they will bow to those, and they won't need to be told to. You don't got to point a gun at somebody who believes you're their savior. That's why I think they push, intersectionality. That's why Ocasio-Cortez is saying it's about not leaving the workers behind. Oh, please, dude. You're going to leave so many people behind. You're going to leave people behind and in gulags. I didn't want to say gulag, but I did. Why do we always see the same thing? Labor camps, execution, because people do get left behind in these systems. So here's what I'll end on saying. I want to fight for the environment. I want everybody to do what they can to save a tree, to plant a tree. I want reforestation. I want clean water. I want to deal with the problem of the fishery collapse, the collapsing fisheries, the dead zones in the ocean. And you know what I think the best way to do it is? First, we need to have a conversation about it. And we need to be honest about it. We need to approach the left and the right and just say, no, tell me what you think. Let's really sit down and talk and kind of, break through this barrier and figure out what everyone needs to understand. Maybe I'm wrong about a lot of things, After we do that, I think we can all agree there's an opportunity in the marketplace for better products. We already have biodegradable plastic-like substances. We have spoons that are made of, like corn-starchy things that break down over time. Congratulations. We made plastic. Eventually, we realized it was bad. And now we've replaced it with plant-based plastic alternatives that can break down. I know Trump is selling plastic straws. It's funny. But the point is, the left too often gets elitist and shoves it in the face of conservatives. And then conservatives, bounce back by saying, I'm going to buy a straw. Screw you. I'll tell you what my response is. Don't ban the plastic straws. Why don't we do the plant-based plastic straws? Trump, you want to sell plastic straws? What about the plant-based ones? They're biodegradable. Then you can take the moral high ground saying not only can we keep plastic straws because we're not crazy, but we've actually used the free market to improve this to solve the problem that you couldn't figure out with your silly ban. Isn't it insane they banned plastic straws? Why didn't they just say straws should be made from biodegradable materials? Those paper straws are trash. Why can't they use what they use for those spoons and forks? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it can't be done. But here's what I think. If you got elitists in their ivory tower saying, no plastic straws for you, say, but this isn't plastic. It's made of plant fibers, and it will break down, and it works as good as plastic. Sounds like a solution to me. Anyway, I'm really offended by Ocasio-Cortez's constant fake environmentalism because if you don't know, I've worked for, I think, 3 or 4 environmental nonprofits. I really do care about the environment. And I think the best way to solve the problem is making sure we can spread the word to as many people as possible. But you want to convince somebody who doesn't believe in climate change to fight for the environment? You're not going to do it by being a dick and trying to implement socialism. You're going to do it by saying, let me make sure I'm not hurting you. Let me make sure I can benefit you. Let me better understand how you live and what you need. And let's try and figure something out. In reality, not everyone will agree with you. Welcome to real life. Sometimes people will just say you're wrong and I don't care, get off my property. And we can only accept that. However, the authoritarians refuse. They believe they have a right to point a gun in your face and say, no, I won't get off your property. And that to me is terrifying. Because if you don't have a good enough argument, if you are such a bad person, people won't sit down with you, and you can't figure out how to actually communicate and request aid, even if it means paying somebody, well, then you've got a problem. You've got the problem. And it is a cheap shot shortcut to try and implement some authoritarian policy to get your way. That's why I'm on the liberty spectrum. So I'll leave it there. Thanks for hanging out. Next segment will be tomorrow at 10 a.m. Podcast every day at 6:30 p.m. I will see you all next time.